we're going to be talking about your life now.
Yeah.
And I kind of have a feeling what you sent in the email of how big it is and the impact it had on your life. And so I just want to go ahead and just give you, the floor to share this story and how you got through it. And, you wrote a book about it. And I want everyone to know how to be able to get it. I'm going to be getting it after we talk. I'm going to get my Kindle out and order it. What happened to you just recently? What's going on with you now, Brian?
Well, a lot of long stories, but basically at this point, like I said, Brandy and I have been married almost 25 years. We've got 2 kids. And like I said, I was at Microsoft from 1998. Then I retired in 2013. And so retirement for me was, I just stopped working for corporate America and I kind of did my own thing. And I had started playing in the crypto space in about 2010. And so most people have heard of Bitcoin and crypto and stuff. And basically Brian Borders, so the Brian I mentioned, he took me to dinner one night and said, "Hey, I figured out a way where I can run something on a computer and make a couple bucks," which was, of course, my attraction. Like, hey, I own plenty of computers, right? And at that point, he showed me how I could participate in the cryptocurrency space. I mean, keep in mind, this was, the infancy, right? And very long story short, I basically became one of the largest crypto miners in the state of Texas by building out crypto farms. Because again, I was retired and worked with some partners. But what ended up happening was, as the crypto space began to grow and grow, like anything, you become obsessed with it and you become deep entrenched with beliefs of things. And so as I'm seeing these Bitcoins come in, I'm not really concerned about the dollar amount. I'm concerned about what I could potentially do, because it went from making a couple bucks on a computer to, hey, this thing's going to hit at some point, I think. What could I do with it? So now the conversation went from what I could put for my, I could put away for myself, what I could do for other people. Now, some other pieces of this is, as I left Microsoft, and actually while I was at Microsoft, Brandy and I were in Japan during the earthquake. And most people don't know that unless you follow me, personally and know. So Brandy and I were actually stuck in Japan during the earthquake. We were actually on our way to Narita Airport. We had been over there for vacation with my parents and Oliver, who was, I think, 5.5 at the time. What that showed me when I was stuck there in Japan was, it showed me that the world is very different than my little American view of things, and the impact that I could potentially have on other people with what I'm seeing in the crypto. So because, again, I'm in crypto in 2010. I'm hoarding Bitcoins at this point, very early on mining. March 2011 comes and I begin to have this little bit of a stash. So I begin to kind of set it aside. At that point, I'm starting other companies where I'm importing gear and doing other mining and trading and doing a bunch of other stuff. So I built up a pretty good amount of Bitcoin. Fast forward many years, I go ahead and I begin to get out of Bitcoin. And then December 12th of 2020, I was SIM swapped. 500 Bitcoin plus.
Explain that. Is when I think of somebody got a hold of your phone?
Well, so what ended up happening, and so this I actually wrote a book about this. It's called Undermined. You can get it on Amazon. Just search for Undermined Brian Oakes and you'll find it. But basically, the book starts out by, I'm sitting at the office I'm in now. We had just done some construction in the office. So yes, I'd retired, but I took a job as an IT director for a company here in Dallas, just, for insurance. And so I'd been working for that company on the side for many years and stuff. So it was natural there. But anyways, they had just done some construction. So Brandy and the kids came up to help rearrange the office because, child labor is awesome and it's free. So I'm sitting in front of my computer and I look up in Outlook. I all of a sudden get a email from AT&T that says, "Hey, there's been a change to your account." So I look at Brandy and I'm like, "Did you go to AT&T today?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay." So I don't worry about it. Then I go ahead and I notice my phone says no service. And then all of a sudden I look over on my computer in Outlook and it says need password. So immediately I knew something happened, right? So I see an AT&T transaction and then my phone has no service. So I'm assuming my phone was basically disserviced, right? And I then open the receipt and I look at it, and sure enough, somebody bought an iPhone and transferred my phone number to it. So for the next hour, hour and a half, I reset my password for a Hotmail account that I have, and then I'm able to see that they were using my phone number to reset passwords on all my crypto accounts. So think about it. Somebody is using the two-factor of your phone, which is the device that everyone tells us to send our two-factor codes to.
Yes.
But the one piece of it that I have no control over at the carrier, they were compromised. So my passwords were compromised. The vulnerability was in the carrier because they were compromised, which allowed the phone number to be taken from my phone, given to another physical phone. So when you go do the whole send the password to your phone or send the two-factor code to the phone number, it all of a sudden went to somebody else's phone. So there's absolutely nothing I can do in that moment. I'm completely helpless.
There's been so many breaches lately, and everything that about us, or whether Social Security numbers or all this kind of stuff, it's all out there now. I mean, what's going to happen next? Do you think, Brian? With obviously now, I want to continue with your story, but that just pops into my head, and if I don't ask you now, I might not remember at the tail end. But
so
it's bad, isn't it? I mean, so you're saying that they didn't have to physically
really
grab your phone. They didn't have to physically grab your phone. They were able to con somebody with the phone company, or
my case is a little bit different, right? So let me just kind of talk about that, and then I'll go back to just how bad it is. So in my particular case, it was specifically targeted through a franchise store, and the computers in the franchise store itself were compromised. So at a corporate store, corporate stores require a higher level of security. The franchise stores don't. So this is a vulnerability in the AT&T system itself. Long and short of it was the password was listed. The computer was remotely controlled while the store was closed. So there was nobody physically in the store when transaction was processed. However, you could see in the video footage that I was able to view. I go into that in the book, but I was able to look at the video footage, and what I was able to see was I was able to see a computer screen go black, and then it went white. Now, I couldn't see the details in it, but what that tells me is that the computer was remotely controlled and made active. So that proved the point that I was making to AT&T among the detectives, among the other things, that the computer itself was compromised inside the store when the store was closed. So as much as you want to blame a bad third party in the store itself was the victim as well.
Wow.
So in this particular case, there is nothing I did wrong. I'm going to do a footnote there because I did do something wrong. Or if this breach within their system had not occurred, I wouldn't have lost $31.5 million in crypto.
That's exactly when you told me that what had happened, and you didn't say it. I just knew it was big. If it involved that, and if I knew you, I saw it in my head already before we even started the conversation that it was going to be something monumental like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So the reason I wrote the book, right, was because of kind of the reaction you just had there, is that everybody focused on the dollar amount that was taken. In fact, most people really didn't know I was in the crypto space because if you think about it, think about 2010, 2011, 2012. 2012 was the Silk Road timeframe. Then you've got 2013, 14, 15. Crypto in the very beginning was associated with money laundering, with crime, with Silk Road, drug purchases, all this kind of stuff due to the anonymity associated with the way the transactions occur. But on the flip side of it is, like anything, it can be used for good or for evil. My view of the blockchain technology is I see the upside of it where you can transfer value, transfer wealth, transfer information, prove identity, prove verification without the prejudice of the human. So the example I use in the book and the example I was using when I was speaking at crypto conferences, which is probably how I was targeted, that's kind of the conclusion I came to. And that was another thing from about 2015 on, I was regularly speaking on panels at different crypto conferences all over the world. But I wasn't a celebrity in any way. I was just some person who was able to scale up mining very efficiently and was able to tell everybody about it. Because as far as I'm concerned, why not give the information out to help everybody out? And that was changed. That opinion was changed in 2010, 2011, and very early on in crypto when I began to understand the potential of what this could become. Not from a dollar amount. I was more concerned about how I could free exchange information and ideas with people and have the verification of the idea be proven without the prejudice of the human. The example I always give is I could take a land deed for a farmer, right? And I could digitally encrypt that and store it in the blockchain. Then anyone else in the world can retrieve that information and verify its authenticity. If I was to go to the local land office, maybe in a war-torn country, I have to leave it up to that individual to verify the authenticity. I'm now leaving it up to the individual to truly give me the correct answer. I wouldn't necessarily want to take that risk because they could be bribed. They could just not want to give me their answer. There's lots of reasons. And so by taking the human out of this and providing preconceived rules and conditions in which the computers are operating under that the consensus agrees to, I now have the perfect condition for decision making. And that's where blockchain technology is very useful in consensus ideas, in voting and verification and transfer of assets. Well, there's so many use cases for it. So I began to focus on the use case. Sure, I was mining because the miners verified the authenticity of the data. So mining's super important. And I like operating computers and I like tinkering with things. But I was mining all these years and working on efficiency as the technology was growing. But my passion was the blockchains itself, not necessarily Bitcoin, but as a result of mining, you tend to accumulate Bitcoin, right? Especially in the early days, if you were importing hardware from overseas before China banned it and some other things, I would actually have DHL trucks show up at my house regularly and just drop off boxes of things. So it was always a way to introduce conversations with people because they kept wondering, hey, why do you keep getting boxes? What are these things? Here's what they are. Here's what they do. Living out in the county where I live, I was able to get my own transformer at my house. So it's funny, I was causing brownouts in the neighborhood very early on, and then the power company fixed that for me. But it was one of those things where eventually I was able to scale up to my own commercial platform and stuff. But like I was saying, it was one of those things where I was accumulating the wealth, but I didn't really look at it from that perspective. Like I was never the guy who was going to go buy the Lamborghini or do the stupid stuff that you see the influencers do now, because to me, I didn't really care. I wasn't doing it for financial gain. I was doing it to explore the ideas. Now, the thing I never really told anybody, including Brandy, which I've talked about that in the book, she had no idea how much crypto I had when it was stolen. She had absolutely no idea because I never brought it up because it didn't really matter. And the way that we handled that theft was so amazing to people because the reaction when I would tell them the amount or I tell them a little bit of the story once we began to tell people, their reaction was, man, I would have killed myself. And that really bugged me. And my response was, why would you want to do that? Well, because I lost all this money. Not really. You lost the idea of the money. You never really had it in the first place. You lost what it could have done for you. But at the end of the day, how are you defining yourself? And so to get me through this process, I ended up talking to a therapist. And in talking to the therapist, there's a fun story with that. But in talking to the therapist, I journaled a little bit. And what ended up starting as the journal became kind of that virtual burn book where you write down your thoughts and ideas. And then the therapist ended up saying, hey, you have a pretty good story you should tell about how you and Brandy address things, handle things. And you've done a bunch of interesting things along the way, and how your view has shaped with these events that you've gone through in your life. Why not write it down? And that is eventually became the book that is now published on Amazon.